Hello, welcome back to Tales from the World's Firesides. I'm Clive Gilson, the story guy, and today I'm telling a traditional Hungarian folk tale called Csabor Ur. I've adapted this tale from a story originally collected by János Kriza, János Erdélyi and Gyula Pap, which itself was adapted from by the Reverend William Henry Jones and Lewis L. Kropf in their book, The Folktales of the Magyars, which was published by Elliot Stock for the Folklore Society in the UK in 1889. This tale appears in my book Tales Told by The Windmother, which contains around 35 traditional Hungarian legends and folk tales. As ever, my aim is to tell stories that might otherwise be forgotten or lost to modern readers, particularly outside of those originating cultures. So tales that help us share those cultures and maybe make our world just a little less complex. But that's enough of that, let's get on with the story. Csabor Ur. There was once a young prince who was, perhaps, not quite 25 years old, tall, and his slim figure was like a pine tree. His forehead was sorrowful, like the dark pine, and his thunder-like voice made his eyes flash. His dress and his armour were black, because the prince, who was known all over the world simply as Csabor Ur, was serving with the picked heroes of the Grand King, and he had no other ornaments beside his black suit but a gold star which the Grand King had presented to him in the German camp for having saved his life. The fame of Csabor Ur's bravery was great, and also of his benevolence, because he was kind to the poor, and the Grand King very often had to scold him for distributing his property in a careless way. The priests, however, could not boast of Csabor Ur's arms, because he never gave any to them, nor did he ever give them any money for masses, and for this reason the whole hierarchy of the church was angry with him, especially the head priest at the great king's court. But Csabor Ur, being a great favourite of the great king, not even a priest dared to offend him openly. But in secret the pot was boiling for him. One cold autumn, the great king arrived at the royal palace, the palace standing on the bank of a large sheet of water, and he was accompanied by Csabor Ur. Before they'd taken the saddles off the stallions, the great king addressed Csabor Ur, saying, "My lad, rest yourself during the night, and then at dawn, as soon as day breaks, hurry off with your most trusty men into Romania, beyond the snow-covered mountains there, to visit old Demeter, because I hear that my Romanian neighbours are not satisfied with my friendship and are intriguing with the Turks. Find out, my lad, what's the news, and warn the old fox to mind his tail, because I may perhaps send him a rope instead of the archiepiscopal pallium." Csabor Ur received the Grand King's order with great joy, and, having taken leave of Dame Margit, dashed off on his bay stallion over the sandy plains to the banks of the Olt, and from there he crossed over, during a severe frost, beyond the snow-covered mountains. He arrived at the house of Jourdan Bur, the king's confidential man, whose guest he was, and here he heard of old Demeter's cunning in all its details, and also that old Demeter was secretly encouraged by the great king's head priest to plot against the sovereign. Hearing this, Csabor Ur started on his journey and arrived on the 4th day in Romania, where he became the bishop's guest, by whom he was apparently received cordially, but the old dog was really just anxious to mislead with his glib tongue about the events there. But it was very difficult to hoodwink the great king's man, Csabor Ur. Now, Csabor Ur never gave any answer to the bishop's many words and questions, and therefore made the bishop believe that he had succeeded in deceiving Csabor Ur. But Csabor Ur was more on his guard than ever, and soon discovered that, every night, crowds of people gathered in the cathedral. Therefore, one night, he also stole in there, dressed in the costume of the country, and to his horror heard how the people were conspiring with the bishop against the great king, and how they were plotting an attack with the aid of the Turkish army. Csabor Ur listened to these things in great silence, and sent one of his servants with a letter to the great king the very next day, in which he described minutely the whole state of affairs. The spies, however, laid an ambush for the servant, and attacked and killed him, and took Csabor Ur's letter from him, and handed it to the bishop, who learnt from its contents that Csabor Ur had stolen into the cathedral that last night. He therefore had the large oak doors closed as soon as the congregation had assembled on the same night, and in an infuriated sermon he informed the people that there was a traitor among them. Hearing this, everyone demanded the traitor's death, and they were ready to take their oath on the Holy Cross that they were not traitors themselves. Whereupon the bishop ordered a stool to be placed on the steps of the altar. He sat down, and he administered the oath to all present. Only one man, in a brown fur cloak, did not budge from the side of the stoop, and the bishop therefore addressed him, saying, "Well, who are you? Why haven't you come to me to take the oath?" But the dark cloak did not move, and the bishop at once knew who it was, and ordered the man to be bound, whereupon the multitude rushed forward to carry out his command. Thereupon the man dropped his brown cloak, and it was Csabor Ur who stood there, erect like a dark pine, with knitted brows and flashing eyes, holding in his right hand a copper mace with a gilt handle, and his left resting on a broad two-edged sword. The multitude stopped, shuddering, like the huntsman who, in pursuit of hares, suddenly finds a bear confronting him. But in the next moment, the crowd did indeed rush at their prey. Csabor Ur, after cutting down about 30 of them, dropped down exhausted and dead himself. His blood spurted up high upon the column, where it can still be seen in the cathedral to this day, to the left of the entrance, even though the priests tried their best to whitewash it. The great king heard of this. He had the head priest imprisoned, and went with an immense army to revenge Csabor Ur's murder. And with his army also came Dame Margit, dressed in men's clothes, who wept at the foot of the blood-spattered column, till one day, after Mass, they picked her up, dead, from the flagstones. Okay, that's the story of Csabor Ur. The legend of Csabor Ur is important because it encapsulates key aspects, I think, of Hungarian history, their culture and their identity. I think it serves as a symbolic representation of leadership, of unity and of resilience, all of which are central to the Hungarian national narrative. Now, if you've enjoyed the story, you can find out more about me, Clive Gilson, the story guy, and Tales from the World's Firesides as a project at clivegilson.com. And there's also dedicated Facebook and YouTube channels in the banner at the bottom of the screen. I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button. It always helps keep these stories front and centre. Please do follow or subscribe to the channels. There's loads of stories up there already, and there's always new stuff every week. That's it for now, though. So until next time, keep reading, keep listening, keep watching, and stay inspired.